My brother Jesse, is good to see you, man. You're glowing, you're beaming over there, man. How you feeling?
Man, incredible, bro. So kind of like some of the stuff that we were talking about in pre-production. Um, what what I've chosen as a profession has turned into, for me, it's not work, you know what I mean? So like when I'm doing the things that I do, it's not it's not taxing on me at all. Like I'm tired as a motherfucker right now just because I'm still in like transitionary mode of figuring out how this firm does things in
Mm-hmm.
comparison to other firms that I've worked for in the past. But beyond that, like the actual engagement and the work with the clients, like it's not work, bro. Like I genuinely love what I do, and having the opportunity to do it like full time, starting with a new client this week. So this is actually my first client with this new firm. The last clients that I work with, they had a primary consultant that was their project, and the firm sent me out just as a shadow because I just finished orientation with them. And my shadow turned into me being billable for them. And now this is, my first project. So getting started with them this week. Yeah. Getting started with them today, going through the whole process of mapping out the project plan that lays out what the next 7 weeks are going to look like as far as the value that, I'm going to be delivering to them. It was my first time doing it, like putting together the plan and going through the like screening process with the analyst, who is the person that actually sold the project, and the director of consulting and the assistant director that, they approve or deny the presentations based on the preparation. And, again, this was light work. So it's been good, man. It's really been good, bro.
That's powerful, my brother. That's dope. I think we're both having very productive weeks. One of my senior partners, he's been getting me on all these calls with all these eight-figure individuals. There's a guy who owns his own private equity portfolio. He's a doctor first, and he started working with different medical practices to help them scale to exit. Because, there's a quote that says doctors don't know nothing about business, and
Facts.
doctors are usually their worst patients. So that there's some truth in that. Well, he went, and instead of getting his MBA, where some of these doctors were like, oh, I went back, got my MBA, and I got a degree in accounting so I could do everything myself. He's like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to do that? So you know what's crazy? You know who mentored him? Carl Allen, my boy. I was out there in Atlanta. He's like, yeah, I've been working with Carl and Chris, and it's been awesome. I was like, man, I love Carl. I love those guys. I was just out in Atlanta with them, da da da. He was like, oh, you know? I was like, oh, I know. I know what's up, man. I know consulting for equity is the move. So it was a great conversation where I was able to show him how tax strategy is really the levy they haven't pulled yet to be able to expand these businesses. Where we looked at a FICA plan where they have 140 employees at this company, and by implementing this FICA plan, which is basically it's a MERP, a medical expense tax plan, and then a health supplement plan. So it's an insurance plan, tax plan. By putting those together, it created a 70% cash flow for the business on what they were paying on their major medical. So that cleared up over 6 figures, just that one thing. And I was like, you realize this is annual, and then it's also going to cut your costs by 25% on your major medical. When you go into year two, it increases employee morale because now the stuff that's bothering them, they can get it checked out. It doesn't have to be, what's the deductible? Am I in the right network? PPO or PPO2 is get the ish handled because the health supplement plan we're going to put on is $0 deductible for them. So all of the preventable medicine stuff is hitting the health supplement plan. The MERP is just making everything more affordable. So the business owner is winning all the way around. The employees are winning because not only do they get much better care, which is so needed here in America, but also the way we structure the plan, it shifts some of their income to tax-free. So it gives the employees a raise of $1,000 to $3,000 per year, depending on what their income is. And that was just the FICA plan. Then we talked about the exit plan, knocking off the capital gains. Then we talked about leveraging tiny homes and energy credits. And it's like, yeah, you guys could have just about a tax-free year. You could have residual income of about $9,000 per month, and this and this and this and this and this. And he's just like, he just kind of like, I was like, what's he doing? He's like, where the hell were you? So it was a powerful conversation. And like we were talking about in pre-production, it was very affirming when you're on here with these 8-figure and 9-figure individuals and they know that you know your stuff and you know your stuff inside now, upside and down, because you put that work in, you read the books, you went to the conferences, people were at the party, you were in the crib learning. Or in my case, I wake up early and study in the middle of the day, still party because I got it like that. But it's putting in the work, putting in the hours wherever you put it in. You know, the hours are flexible, not optional. So
That
getting those
bar, ooh, bars,
dog,
bars.
getting those 10,000 hours. So it's been really affirming. With that gentleman, I have a call tomorrow morning with actually that's Wednesday morning. Tomorrow I'm going to be at the leadership prayer breakfast, but Wednesday morning I'm going to be talking to a gentleman who did 7 figures this year, and he's scaling to a strong 8. And he's like, hey, I got referred to you because I can already tell I'm about to get killed on my taxes. And my CPA only told me to do one thing. And I was like, what is that? Buy real estate? And he's like, how'd you know? Because he doesn't have any strategies. And it's not I'm not poo-pooing the CPA, but he just doesn't have that knowledge. I'm sure he is immaculate with being a custodian for the IRS, making sure everything is A1 so you're not going to prison because that's important as well. But his role is not to come together with a comprehensive, holistic tax plan to allow you to pay less taxes while growing your business. And he's just like, yeah, that part. So I'm excited to hop in that one as well. It's just filling up, bro.
Now, that's one thing that I didn't know until I started with this firm, which is following Enron. And when Martha Stewart went to jail, they changed all of the laws. And from that point forward, it's illegal for your CPA and your it's illegal for the CPA or the CPA and the strategist to be one and the same. Like they have to be separate. So by law, you know, it's why those CPAs are primarily scorekeepers, referees. And
yeah, man, and it can get so convoluted depending on what industry they're in. Sometimes they have to use a certain software. Sometimes they have to have multiple agents on the taxes. Sometimes they don't. It's crazy how it's not set for anyone. You know, my tax attorney and I, we were talking to a guy who wasn't my client. I was just on the call learning, soaking in the game. And it was interesting. The guy was trying to get him to commit to like, oh, yeah, you can save me a crazy amount of money. He's like, it's possible. He's like, maybe we look in your books and the forensic accountants find something and we have something that's really great for you. Maybe you've been doing your books wrong this whole time, but you haven't got audited yet and you should have been paying more taxes. It's like, I don't know yet. But what I do know is that we are experts in what we do, and we're going to put you in the best situation you can be in legally, ethically, and morally. And it was interesting to see him kick that because sometimes we can get a little thirsty for a client and we're thinking about the prestige of working with a so and so or the income that comes with working with a so and so or a certain size business. And he's just like, he's like, I don't know. I don't know. Until I see your documents, until we do a deep dive, I don't know anything. But what I do know is how to stack together a top to bottom tax plan. So it it definitely made me laugh and it definitely made me go like, dang, I need to get my swagger up. Because that's how I've been in the financial game. Where someone's like, oh, can you do this for me? Maybe. I don't know. Do you qualify for it? What's your savings account looks like? What's your portfolio spread look like? What's it been the last 3 years? You want this product, but I'm not gonna write you just anything and then I'm gonna get a chargeback because chargebacks are ghetto. I don't do that. So they'll get mad, like, you can't get all that fancy stuff. You know what you can get? You get some term, and we're gonna start building you a brokerage account, and then we're gonna revisit next year because it's not always, what is that expression? Um, the customer is always right, but people forget the back end. It's only when it comes to matters of taste. When they're looking for a professional, when they're looking for an advisor, when they're looking for a coach, a confidant, customer's not always right. And we got to shut that ish down. Well, I know we've been into the episode for a second, and I know we're going to talk about even more actionable stuff. So I want to make sure we get our disclaimer in here and we get our intro. So as you guys can tell, we really do business. We're not playing. This is not Facebook games. We're going to give you guys a lot of actionable information from things that we're doing with our own clients. So we always encourage you to work with licensed professionals, bonded in cases where need be, and to do your own research. Because as we learn more, each one, reach one, teach one, because that's how we learn and grow as a community.
1000%. So during pre-production, you were also referencing getting your office squared away. How has that process been?
It's been going pretty smooth so far. There were some rules because we're in a space. It's not necessarily like it's kind of like a WeWork with private offices. So I have my private office, and then I have several other workspaces that I can use. I have an auditorium if I want to do a conference or a workshop, or maybe film an episode of Asset Class. Who knows? Who knows?
Alrighty.
So we got some space to work with, but there are also some rules there where we couldn't move the furniture ourselves. So we put some sit stand desks in there, and we wanted to move out the default desk. And it's like, hey, on our lease it says we can't move it, and they're like, oh yeah, it's because it's this type of wood, and people grab it from the top and they break it, and then you're liable for it, and you don't want to pay for it. I was like, I'm not paying for Jack. So go ahead and schedule those moving men to go ahead and move it. So they finally moved the old desk out, new desk in. We got 3 monitors in there. We're about to get some towers, and it'll be on and popping.
Right. Man, that is absolutely incredible, bruh. And that what you're describing there is one of the key distinctions that I really want to tap into in this episode, which is you're speaking from the perspective of building liberation, freedom. Like there's infrastructure that is being put into place that gives you the ability to scale and actually achieve true freedom. And the piece about dealing with these my clients, it's what I refer to as entrepreneurial slavery, in the sense of, to have a passion or to own a business in which ownership of said business enslaves said owner, is, it just goes contrary to how we should be viewing our businesses. And I'm not here to preach to nobody, to each its own. For folks that are comfortable in enslaving themselves to their own passion, have at it. You know what I'm saying? Like, cool. I'm not asking no questions to get you to second guess the decision you made for yourself. If you comfortable with that, cool. But I'm just speaking to it from the perspective of, it's tragic and it's unnecessary. So I know that what leads to it oftentimes is just a lack of understanding of what it takes to avoid it. So, I want to give kind of a real clear roadmap to avoid falling into that trap of entrepreneurial slavery, because the results are tragic and long lasting, and again, unnecessary. So that process begins with first mastering a craft, like truly becoming the subject matter expert of what it is that you do. So that, because in doing so, you're a person is able to actually contribute to the ecosystem that they're a part of, as opposed to just taking from it. So taking the time, and we've spoken about it. Like, we are our greatest asset. So how we're investing in ourselves as the asset that we are contributes, like it sets the framework for truly creating liberation, as opposed to the latter. So like, got to master your trade first, because like kind of moving into a business space half cocked and not really knowing what good looks like, and I'm talking from top to bottom, it can get tough. But once that foundation is established, from there you have something to build upon, something to leverage. So like, when I think about these last few years of truly investing in myself, and now being in the space where, like I mentioned a few episodes back, this 6-figure deal was the easiest that I've ever had, easiest conversation I've ever had. Now, it's a low 6-figure negotiation, but it's a fucking 6-figure negotiation nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And it came from what I've put into becoming who I am, which gives me leverage to build upon those lessons that I've learned. So from establishing the framework of actually having a marketable skill that actually contributes to the ecosystem as opposed to the latter, then you have something to build from. And the analogy that I like to give is that of a four-legged stool. So for anyone that is operating a business or has aspirations to at some point operate a business, thinking about that business as a four-legged stool, where the first leg of that stool is, how are we establishing an intentional framework that consistently attracts, nurtures, and converts leads into paying customers? Because absent that leg, that, again, on its own, it generates the leads, then we run into a space where we got all of this talent and no one to serve. So, because no one knows that all of that talent even exists, because it's not being marketed. It's not being put in the faces of folks in a deliberate enough fashion that takes them through the phases of conversion. The second leg is the operations leg, which whatever it was that has been sold, how are we producing and delivering that good or service consistently without quality defects, without losing efficiency, without deteriorating our bottom line, and having the internal capacity to keep up with an increase in demand. Because the better that one is at doing a thing, as people start to find out that they're good at doing that thing, more people want that thing that they do. And if they can't keep up with that demand, then you start running into brand issues. So that second leg transitions to the third leg, which is the accounting finance side of things. And understanding generally accepted accounting principles enough to have a managerial accounting strategy within the business. And managerial accounting is really nothing more than understanding how the activities in the business translate into the financial results that actually are like the report card. Because the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet are in the cash flow statement. Those are the report cards of a business that's functioning. And if those numbers are not speaking to positive growth and equity, then like, what are we actually doing? It's like we engaging in a hobby that is super demanding on our time that ultimately isn't producing any market value or enterprise value. And which then translates to the final leg, which is the managerial and the management and compliance leg of it, which is ensuring that whatever it is that is being delivered to the ecosystem is in compliance with all local, state, federal regulations that govern said industry, to include taxes and all of the things. And in having 4 strong legs, you have a solid stool. Now, Earl, have you ever sat on a stool that had a weak leg?
One time too many, brother.
Right? So you kind of get that wobble with one weak leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens when you got 2 weak legs on that 4-legged stool?
That thing's going down.
Right? You might as well have just set your ass on the floor, because that's where you're going. Like, the unfortunate reality is too many business owners, and I see it all the time, are lucky if they have one strong leg. And that one strong leg is dependent on a bunch of variables. Like, the operations leg is generally like the strongest leg because that's the doing the thing, until the demand for doing the thing exceeds the capacity of the on the operation side, and then that leg ain't strong either. So it's just critically important to have that kind of piece in place. Now, I don't want to turn this into a monologue, so there's more framework to that. But as we start talking about having those 4 legs in place, then you actually have something to work with that actually demonstrates true value. Now, as that gets put into place, then we get to a space where that LLC graduates to an S Corp or a C Corp, depending on the tax strategy. And based on that tax strategy is when it is vitally important to know someone like my man Earl, because like I mentioned a moment ago, after Imran, the CPA and the tax strategist by law can no longer be one and the same. So a certified tax and business advisor is able to take that LLC that is converted into an S Corp. And so Hove is my favorite rapper, always has been, and I'm pretty sure he probably always will be. But he got a bar on Pusha T's Drug Dealers Anonymous where he says, shout out to my accountant. He deserves okay, what do you say? Shout out to my accountant who, God, please, this is terrible. Like, all right. So
we're gonna get the bar because there's a
my,
whole bar for everything.
Right. He said something to the effect of my accountant who, okay, there it goes. Who deserves a medal of freedom is my accountant. He been hula hooping through loopholes, working around shit. And again, it's a bar, so it's not a complete accurate depiction of like how all of that works. But and to the point that I was just making as far as the separation between a tax strategist versus a compliance officer. So with Earl, what he does is hula hoop around the loopholes that folks are ignorant and oblivious to leverage the growth of a company by avoiding high tax exposure. So, Earl, when you think about a LLC that is transitioning into an S Corp, what are some of the common things, gems that a business owner needs to understand in order to avoid Uncle Sam having his hands in their pocket?
That's a great question. I think the first thing we have to do is really take into account if you should be using an S Corp election. Because what you're trying to do initially, there's a couple things that an S Corp does for you, but you're really trying to you're trying to avoid the double tax on self-employment. Because when you work a W-2, you split it 50-50. You're paying half of those FICA taxes and your employer's paying half of those FICA taxes. When you're a business, that's you. You're paying the whole shebang. And if you don't have employees yet, that's you. And even if you do have employees and you're in a position where you're looking at the taxes on your own income, so the W-2 you're giving yourself, that's where an S Corp can really save you. So I have conversations with people on the daily. I just told a brother to dissolve his. He had a side business outside of his main business. And he's like, you just S Corp everything. That's what I was told. It's like, well, what are you making in this side business? It's like, 50,000 a year. And it's like, my brother, that's not enough for S Corp election. You have to pay for accounting. You have to pay for bookkeeping. You got to do things quarterly. There's all these costs associated with it. If you're not up there, depending on what your industry is, because there's always exceptions to the rule, but if you're not really looking at a draw where you're making $100,000 a year, and let's say you're taking 50, 60, 70 of that as your W-2, and then you're taking the rest as an owner draw, like, you're in a position where it doesn't even make sense.
Distribution. Like that's important to distinguish, because the LLC is a draw, whereas the S corp is a distribution. So like that piece, I'm gonna plug that piece in there real quick. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're right. It definitely is. It's still an owner's draw that's given a special factor. Like that's where we start getting into trust law and whatnot and contract law, what we're calling something in a certain circumstance. So a withdrawal when you have an S corp, after you've paid yourself the right amount of money, is a distribution, and then you're not paying self-employment tax on it, and you're not paying corporate tax on it either. That's a part most people don't talk about because they don't really know that part. You're not getting hit over the head with corporate tax on there, which is amazing to get away from that, 21% rate. So it can be a really, really powerful tool when it makes sense. And that's why we got to look at the whole thing holistically. Because some people in their industry, if you are paying yourself what the IRS says you should pay yourself, maybe you don't want to S corp. Maybe it saves you more money to do a different structure where you got a C corp, you got a managerial company, and we're doing something more complex. That might make sense for you, where you're paying yourself. Or maybe we do a captive insurance company, and then it's different things that we can do as different structures. But the S corp election can be huge when you first hit that $100,000. It can be major. One thing that I really like that you were talking about in the first part is putting in the work and how you get to contribute to your society instead of just being a consumer. I've always loved that quote, and I looked at it more as doing the personal work to become the man or woman that we're supposed to be. And it's, when you do the work on yourself, you become a gift to the world. And that's the blessing that you went in and you put the grind. But I love the way that you put that, because we need to be in a state of being producers instead of being consumers. I have people get mad at me all the time. I like your story. I like your post. You don't ever like mine. It's because I don't see yours. And it's not out of hate. It's not because I think I'm better than you. I post my stuff and get off because we really do business. I'm like, between taking care of the fam, running the business, we got the podcast, we got the media company, we got all this stuff, doing funding for different businesses, getting my new designations. I'm like, when in that part am I supposed to watch, your 17 stories of you had an ice cream cone, now you're driving, and singing to the song. Oh, you hit a pothole, tires flat. Don't worry, the truck is there. We're back on the road again. Time for burgers. Am I hating on you? Absolutely not. You should keep posting exactly what you're posting because there's an audience for it. But it's okay if I'm not in that audience. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I'll tell you, the way this girl grabbed me, Jesse, she was like, hey, watch my story. It's like, my goodness. And now I really won't be watching it because you blocked. Unhand me. So speaking of blocks
Oh
and
man,
blockades,
Jesus.
we are really feeling the pain. I think it's
Not yet.
interesting.
We ain't even felt it ain't came yet, bro. Like what
Look,
we getting ready to feel? Like shit about to get real. Shit about to
look,
get real. Real. I'm sorry, go ahead.
you're right. You're right. Look, we're starting to feel the pain, but we're not being tortured yet. It is just the beginning of it, where I've seen so many posts of people saying, dang, I think I'm gonna get rid of my Land Rover. I'm gonna get rid of this, I'm gonna get rid of that. It was such a big part of their identity to have that vehicle. Now they're like, ooh, this is not sustainable for me or my lifestyle. And I'm like,
Liability.
first off, kudos to you for recognizing that, but I encourage you to go deeper because you probably have other stuff like that as well. that you don't need it, your ego needs it. And your ego is not your amigo. So let that stuff go. Now, it's crazy as we're watching the blockade happen. I'm going to let you speak to that because I already know you got the clip loaded up. I'm going to talk about the national debt and then I'm going to pass you the mic. We are at a point where the first time in 80 years in this nation, our national debt is greater than the GDP. Our national debt is greater than the GDP. Our national debt is growing at $1.5 trillion every 180 days. The average American reads at a third grade level. So by the time they read the closed captioning on this, the national debt has gone up $5 million. That's how fast it's growing. We're talking about every 1 minute, it's growing $5 million. And we're at a point where I've seen where I'm looking at the same town that just banned Juneteenth throw a rally to impeach the president. All I can do is laugh because I don't have any other words for that. But I mean, we told you guys this. We told you if this blockade kept up, gas prices were going to be close to $5. You called us crazy. We also said, man, the price of food's going to grow up because 30% of the world's fertilizer goes through there. So now we are at, what do they call it? Operation something freedom?
Yeah. Epic Fury, Operation Epic Fury.
Operation Epic Fury. Yeah. And they're putting it under the guise of a humanitarian mission.
Hold on, not Fury. Epic Fury is the full Iran war.
Okay, so Operation, oh man, we're gonna have to look this up and add it in post. I just watched a full length deal about it, but that's what happens when you do real business all day. Brain gets a little mushy. Where American ships are supposed to be working through the blockade to ensure certain ships make it through the strait.
Oh yeah. I did see that. Yep, I did see that. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead though.
So we're at a point where Americans are pushed to the max. And I have nothing but empathy and love for people going through this experience. I'm watching my family go through these experiences. And these are completely self inflicted. We've been saying over and over and over again the last 34 weeks, the most important office when we're talking about civics is that of citizen.
Yep. So
The
that's
lack of
Operation Project Freedom is what it's called.
Operation Project Freedom. Man, does not sound like a movie that would have like Zach Galifianakis in it, and it's like wacky, but somehow he became a soldier, and you got some B-list comedians in there. That is definitely a Mountain Dew inspired name. Like that's crazy. Guys, there is no time like the present to hold accountable those that sit in seats as representatives of this country, especially if they're in your party. It is so easy to fling mud from across the aisle and talk about, oh, well, that person's an idiot. That shuts down a discussion. There's nothing to build on with there. Hey, what I think this representative is doing is criminal. I think they are unfit for their seat, and I think their greed is destroying our country. Here's why I believe it. Here's why we need to remove them for their seat. That starts a conversation. That gives an area for a dialogue to happen. And that's what we need to do more than ever. Jesse, please unload the thoughts.
Bruh. I mean, we've been talking about this stuff consistently, and so the primary one, I met a cat in the firm that I'm in, and he from Ghana, and he's been paying attention to all of this stuff. And I was telling him about the pod and how we be talking about this stuff like every week. And like honestly, I internally I struggle with it a little bit because I know that the majority of people are not paying attention to it. And it's like, at what point am I beating a dead horse? But the the implications of all of this stuff are too vast to act like it's not happening. So it's like we gotta keep it top of mind. But it's really no different than what we've been saying, which is the more that we are doing as a military force in that region, the more that it's destabilizing the entire global economy. So the blockade where so like I gotta rewind back to the fact that this still is not like Congress has not declared it a war. And like it's insane to me. Like how they play in our faces like we not like we can't see exactly
Mm-hmm.
if there were another country that brought their naval forces to prevent tankers and ships entering our ports to deliver our goods from the other countries, that would clearly be an act of war. Clearly. Like
What?
it's no situation in the world in which something like that could happen to the United States and we wouldn't be, what I'm saying, like dropping bombs on motherfuckers like crazy like.
Mm-hmm.
So just starting from that of it's not a war. And we literally, so we've crossed 60 days of this war. And the War Powers Resolution says that anytime that, undeclared, because the president can unilaterally conduct military operations akin to war for a 60-day period. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, then they're required to go and get congressional authorization. Well, this administration is now saying that the clock reset, that 60-day clock reset, because they initiated a ceasefire where the bomb stopped. Bruh, the amount of our forces that are currently in the Middle East, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of our forces that are currently in the Middle East it's an insane amount of U.S. troops, and I'm not talking about the U.S. troops that have traditionally been deployed in the Iraqs and the Syrias and the other countries within the Middle East. I'm talking in direct support of Operation Epic Fury. Like they were mobilized specifically in support of the war effort. You can't have that large of a footprint that is literally blocking any commerce from coming in or out of Iran. It's and it's not the first time. Like the the our US military did the same thing to Cuba. Like within the last few months.
That's what I was getting
The
ready to say. When you were like, could you imagine a naval force? And I was gonna be like, could you imagine like them doing that to intentionally try to starve a nation that has to import most of its goods, foods? Wouldn't that be an act of war? And man, that's been an interesting conversation because, as we know, many of the Cubans, especially in Miami, were very pro Trump. They were dancing on the Trump boat. They had that song about how great Trump is. And then the lady that was singing on the boat, her husband was deported. And it's crazy, man. I wish I had a petty bone in my body where I could be like, ha ha. But man, I just feel almost sympathy. And I have sympathy for none. I'm just like, this is what happens when we are uninformed and when we use groupthink and we operate off of emotions instead of facts, where we're not reading patterns, where we're not looking deep. So, and even in this situation, I'm like, you don't even have to look deep. You just have to have like one eye that kind of works, and you could look and be like, yeah, that dude's kind of shady. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So I'm the only silver lining I'm hoping that's coming out of this wild, wild situation is that, hey, 25th Amendment gets invoked and we can get this dude out of office and we can get a stable person in the White House. And I don't believe that's JD Vance.
Right.
So,
Like we can't even get Congress to step in on the war, like because the Congress by statute controls the power of the purse. So the military cannot operate without funding. Period. Can't.
yeah.
And Congress ain't doing that. And it's 535 elected officials, and the Republican Party is the majority in both the House and the Senate, and the Congress is not. So the reason that I reference that is if Congress is not able to grow a pair and rein in this abuse of power, the odds of the president's cabinet actually evoking the 25th Amendment, like it's nothing about that seems like possible. Like
Yeah.
if we can't get Congress to do it, then a smaller group of people that directly reports to the president, that shit ain't happening. So
I'm gonna beg to differ on my wild dream of a stable economy, and that I'm gonna defer just for that one reason. Say, you know what, man? We're almost to his cabinet like 6.0 because people never stay long because most of them end up in prison. Like during his first presidency, he had more cabinet members in prison for treason than every other president combined. Treason. It's not just like, oh, you accidentally sent an email. Treason. Treason. Fraud. I mean, the list is crazy. Two of his lawyers are in prison or were in prison. I don't know if he wrote them out because he's been doing that, releasing people. But my hope is that, with every action, there's an opposite powerful reaction. That this can help galvanize people, that it can help jumpstart communities again, that it can help, galvanize folks that haven't talked to each other for many, many years, that they can come together and get stuff done. And we can do what I always say, which is normalize solving problems without the government. In this particular case, it's a little bit tough to solve the Strait of Hormuz without, controlling these governing factions. I get that. Everything else that we have going on in our nation, It would be beautiful and powerful to see people come together better, support each other more, and that's pretty much where I have park it, man. There's so much going on. There's so many people going through it, so many businesses that I see bleeding out money with the price of gasoline right now, with the price of fertilizer going up, the price of insert something. You know, go to Costco and go to get some beef, and it's like, oh, okay, it looks like that's on sale. It's about yay big. It's $57. It's like those are steak prices. So we're gonna have to have a lot of things change, and I always like to think that change begins inside of ourselves.
Yeah. No. 100%, man. It's, we've been talking about it consistently, which, and you referenced it earlier in the conversation as well. The most powerful office in the land is that of the citizen, but there's been a concerted effort into the divestment, excuse me, the divestment into education. And we see the impacts of it, like real tough, like too many, you said it earlier as well. What percentage of the US population can't read beyond a third grade level? It's that those types of stats are the fertile foundation for us to be where we are. Like, people are not paying attention to this stuff. They don't know what it means. They don't care what it means until they are not going to have a choice but to care, because things are so dire. Like, that's the reality. And it's so when I was talking with my brother from Ghana that I was telling you about, I was telling him, bro, like, I want to be wrong about this shit. Like, when we talk about it every week, like, truly, I want to be wrong. Like, for real. Because me being right means that our country suffers. Like, our people suffer in demonstrative ways that we have not seen in, a lifetime. Like, this is next level pain that's getting ready to happen. I want to be wrong, bro. Seriously. I really want to be wrong. I'm not saying the stuff that I'm saying to be to stir up like virality or to stimulate attention. I don't need that shit. Like, I have an actual skill that actually provides value. So I'm going to be straight. I don't need the attention or none of that. I'm not being like hyperbolic. I would love to be wrong. When I'm looking at what's happening, I just don't see how it can go any other way. And it's, again, through the divestment within the education system and all of the distractions. So one of the things that this current president is really good at doing, he is the master of distraction. If it's real shit going on, then he gonna throw out the biggest Hail Mary squirrel. And everybody is just chasing this squirrel. And it's like, bro, the real shit is still right here. Like, you may be off of the beacon path chasing the squirrel that he threw out there, but this real shit is still happening.
Yep. 100,000,000%, brother. And it's, I'm a little bit more hopeful in my disposition, where I'm looking at people and they're not falling for the banana in the tailpipe right now, where they may not be all the way on the other side, where they're truly thinking critically. They're not there yet. However, they're like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't add up. I saw a video of a guy saying, "Where is my Trump phone?" Gave him $600. he did not deliver a phone. I'm a man of my word. Why is he not a man of his word? He's like, if you can't deliver a phone, maybe you can't deliver on other things. And I'm like, he's almost there. Like, keep going, keep going. But it's so interesting, man. There's someone I know here in town that would be walking around with their Trump Bible, Trump shoes, hat, shirt, jacket, everything. They trumped out. And I talked to them the other day, and they're like, wow, I can't believe how powerful these politics are when they're like team politics. I just wanted to be on the winning team so bad that I completely stopped going in a direction where my morals lie. And we had like a really interesting conversation. There was a couple people there that wanted to be like, I told you so. They wanted to unleash on them. And I'm like, I get it. I get the feelings. I get the sentiment 100%. People are allowed to change their mind at any point in time. That's a fact. But also, you are accountable for all the decisions that you've made, all the things that you've done. If you've done a bunch of, not saying this person did, but if you're the type of person who's done a bunch of stuff that's not that great in your whole life and you decide to become a better person one day, that's an awesome decision. But everything that happened back here, you're still accountable for. So there's so much nuance to these different conversations. And I'm just glad that they're being had. You and I talk about it all the time. We're like, look, we like having these real conversations, open up minds and whatnot. But at the same time, everybody can't go.
That part. And it's sad because it's too many people that can't go. And I bruh, like I said, I don't know how any of it is sustainable because it's too many people that are not paying attention to the stuff, which means that when it gets really bad for too many people, then it turns into a whole different thing. So looking at all of the layoffs, we talked about the Oracle 30,000 via email. Meta is laying off people. Like it's company after company that
Spirit sent out a text. A text. Hey, company shutting down. Don't come to work.
there's no work to come to.
Left people. And that was all because we couldn't get government bonds approved for the package they needed to keep running. And they noted in their exit letter that the increased cost of jet fuel was a major factor. And it was interesting. I've watched people debate on it, saying, hey, this is the Democrats' fault because they blocked JetBlue buying it. And in retrospect, that might first, I don't lay blame out that clearly. There's so many factors in that deal, how much debt was laid in there. Like the financials of Spirit have not been well for the past 5 years.
So
it hasn't been a good business.
Yeah, like we gotta, because like where does that stop at? If we are expecting for the government to bail out bad business practices, like that's a race to the bottom because they are using our tax dollars to do that. So the idea of a company being subsidized by the government to begin with, and to then have terrible business practices, the shareholders in Spirit have made out like bandits for years off of bad business. So like I'm not a proponent of the government coming in the last hour and saving any of these companies, because they had financial reports like far more. These businesses that I'm working with every single day, they got to struggle and figure it out. they got to pay a lot of money to have people come in and help them to figure out what they need to figure out in order to survive. These big companies that have been generating hundreds of millions in EBITDA, bruh, like I don't have no sympathy, no empathy, none of that for the companies themselves. Now, the people that get laid off, obviously, that's terrible. And, you know what I'm saying? I got all of the sympathy and empathy in the world for them. But the companies themselves, nah, bruh. Like I can't endorse the idea of the government stepping in for that.
You
So
know what ticks me off? When the government has stepped in, it still ends up like this. Why? Because every time we've had a bailout, there is no supervision of how the monies are used. When the subprime mortgage crisis happened, some companies bought each other. Lehman Brothers went away, and we looked at these companies become like super conglomerates. They got all the money from the Fed. Only one person went to prison, which is insane. And the person that went to prison was not even controlling a large amount of money. They were just the scapegoat. I need to Google and see how long they actually served because we know they play these games. However, what we saw come out of the funding that went into these large institutions was gigantic bonuses to the C-suite executives, cutting off more dividends, cutting out these checks to shareholders, to the board of directors, and that was from tax dollars. And then where did they put the rest of the money? Did they give it to the loyal employees who've been busting their hump? Make them great? Absolutely not. They took that money and bought their own stock and what's called a buyback so they could hyperinflate their valuation. And then when their valuation went up, it gives the ability for them to raise even more capital because it's on the exchange. So my thought has always been, if you ever take bailout money, you can never, ever be a private entity again. That has to be something that the people own, or it has to be distributed in a way where it comes back to the people. There's no way you can say, I messed up, I had bad financials, I made bad decisions, but I need your tax dollars to stay alive. Thanks for the money. Now we're taking bonuses, we're on yachts, and next time we crash, be ready to open up your checkbook again. That's insane. That is, I had a mentor say a long time ago when I was in business school. He's like, remember, if you rob one person, oh, you definitely going to jail. But if you find a way to rob 10,000, maybe 1,000,000, they'll call you a genius and they'll give you a bonus.
yeah, absolutely. And bail you out. Like yeah, I don't. So I heard the political talking points about the Democrats killing the merger and whatnot. Those issues preceded that even being a conversation to begin with. So, you know what I mean? Like we got to kind of trace it back to the root, which is irresponsible business results in tragic results. And that's how the ecosystem works. It's the same with our tax system, and we've talked about it on this program a few times. Raising taxes on Americans is not going to address the problem in the United States. It's not. Like we have a spending problem. Like we don't do well with budgeting and being arbiters of a budget that has been established. The United States government doesn't do what small businesses have to do every single day in order to survive. So the idea of throwing good money after bad is a fool's errand. So it's, the same way that more taxes wouldn't fix that issue, throwing good money at bad relative to these companies that have terrible business practices. No, they got to go. Like in 2008, the financial crisis, those banks should have been able to fold and for things to shake out the way that they needed to shake out. Because what ended up happening was there was all of this money that was thrown at the problem, and the fat cats got fatter. Like it saved the banking industry, I guess. The people that got paid. Nobody went to jail. Like, you can't tell me that those things that they were doing were not criminal. Period.
And
Because it
and
was
here's the
too many
part
people.
that,
Go ahead.
go ahead, brother.
No, go ahead, please.
Here's the kicker. As we're landing this episode, we are at higher levels of instability than the 2000 crash, the internet crash. So all this money going into hyperinflate valuation, we have the SEC being pushed by this current administration to get rid of quarterly reporting and make it semi-annual. And I know a lot of people listening are like, so that's not a big deal. It's a huge deal because it means your propensity, if you are a bad actor, to be able to hide losses goes up exponentially because you're not doing real reporting. So they're going to know how to hide these losses, shift these assets where the realized loss, because these companies are so big, they're moving off of speculation. The stock market is speculative. It's all on sentiments. It's really on how we feel about the thing, even more than the fundamentals. Does that mean you can't trade off fundamentals? Absolutely not. Fundamentals can be vitally important to finding the right strike price and all these different things. But if we're going from quarterly reporting to semi-annual and they want to completely tear it out so it's only fourth quarter reporting, those are key marks of a depression, not a recession, a depression where you want to hide the blood that bad because these companies are bleeding out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in closing, the one thing that I wanted to speak to was last week, because you and I have been consistent. Like, we have been committed. We have been on it when it comes to, by any means necessary, putting out an episode every week. Now, it may have been released late, but every week we got an episode since last year. And last week, bruh, we get on the Zoom because generally, like, before, we were streaming on the actual streaming platform. Well, since I done started this traveling thing, I'm susceptible to hotel Wi-Fi. So depending on how well that the Wi-Fi is, has a direct impact on the filming piece. And last week, in the area of Michigan that I was in, one of them kind of BF places, bumfuck, they Wi-Fi was atrocious. And like, we tried and tried and tried. And I don't even like using the word try, because it's like either we did it or we didn't. We ain't trying shit. We legitimately tried. You know what I'm saying? And like every kind of alternative that we could think of to work around it, we attempted it all and nothing worked. So for that, I want to extend my sincerest apologies to the folks that have been rocking with us and really, taking in the content. and processing it and understanding what the stakes are. We value you deeply, immensely, and understand that if we miss an episode, it is never due to a lack of full commitment and attempt. And we certainly did. And it just did not work.
So look, at least we're back on it right now, y'all. We really did. We looked at every angle. Man, it just wasn't gonna go. But we're back here this week. We're gonna be back next week. We have some crazy stuff to talk about next week. Y'all are gonna be blown away. I can't wait for you guys to tune in. Man, my guy Jesse.
My man Earl, this has been the Asset Class. Thank you for listening.